Dick Quax, does it work where you have Olympians, former Olympians involved in administration? Do good former athletes at times make good administrators as well?
No, well, not necessarily. I think there's probably some outstanding examples of very good or people who've been to the Olympics and Olympians who come up and make very good administrators. But I don't believe that you have to be involved in the sport at all, in fact, to be a good administrator, to understand what people want, to understand the needs of all the people involved in the sport, the lower down administrators, the amateur administrators, the professional administrators, the coaches and the athletes. You've got to be able to understand that and be able to bring a team together. The problem for athletics to some extent is that most of these people are scattered all over the world. Nick Willis is in the United States, so is Lucy Van Dalen, and Valerie spends a lot of time in Europe and Switzerland. So a lot of these people are scattered all over the world. So it's more about bringing them together and making sure that everything works well for them when they get to the particular event that they're aiming for.
Phil, what do we do about the situation with, say, Nick Willis, who performed so well in the lead-up to the final? He was also flag bearer. He had that pressure or honour bestowed on him. Do we shrug when he comes home and say simply, well, that's sport. Sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. Or do you have essentially a post-mortem of his performance and think, how did he get it wrong? Was it just sport? Or did he not have the structure around him?
Well, I think somebody like Nick Willis would be doing self-analysis to a huge degree. And I mean, I'm very sad for the guy, because I think, in a way, he's a victim of, I feel anyway, and well, look, he started it himself. He said, I talked too much and it came back and bit me in the arse. And while it's not as simple as that, I think there's a huge degree, and he's a very brutal way to talk about himself, and it makes it sound as if it was his decision to run out and do everything, and to a degree it probably was. But I think he just drew himself too thin. And it's a very difficult thing for athletes, because getting back to Valerie Adams, there were a number of stories before these games started saying, almost who does she think she is? She's just going to come out of secrecy in Switzerland. She's not going to be at the opening ceremony. She's treating herself as a special case. Yes, she is. And that's because when she treats herself as a special case, she wins gold in Beijing. So she's going to do exactly the same thing. Nick Willis, being such a nice guy, tried to do everything to please everybody. And in the end, at the level that he's competing at, I think maybe the elite athletes, more today than ever, have to think only of themselves, and especially in the fortnight leading into the Games, in a word, have to be selfish, because without it, you can spread yourself too thin. And my heart broke for Nick Willis, because I just think he was a guy that was emotionally exhausted.
Yeah, do you agree?
Yeah, and I do agree to some extent with what Phil is saying about Nick. He does seem to have got himself very much involved in the whole team ethos over there. And to be fair, I think that when you're there, you need to think only about yourself. Yes. You can't afford to think about anybody else. You need to do what's best for you, and ultimately that will lead to a much better performance. And I think that Nick got himself in this whole area where, oh, I'm just going to, be part of the team. It's
a difficult line you walk, don't you, Moss, as an athlete, because, as Phil said, you can come out as being criticised for being elitist or arrogant, when really you do, I assume, have to go into something of a cave for quite a while before you compete.
Yeah, you do, and you've got to look at everything. Again, the question's got to be, is this going to help me go faster? And if it's not, then you shouldn't be considering it, and it should be as simple as that.
Dick, we set out to win 10 medals. We've done better than that. We've won 12. Is that as good as it gets for this country, do you think? Or am I being too greedy? Should we be able to do better than that? McCulley said maybe up to 20.
Yeah, well, maybe, and I think we all should have aspirations and goals. But when I look at what we have done at these Olympics, I find it quite remarkable, actually. I couldn't imagine that any other country, which is, maybe, you look at Jamaica on the track and so forth, and they do very, very well in the sprints. But, we do well over a variety of events. We do well from sailing right through to rowing and canoeing and track and field and swimming and so forth. So we do well right across the board. And when I compare ourselves with some of the huge nations. You know, we're a little, people don't realise sometimes how small we are. We're a little nation of 4.5 million people at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, and we do remarkably well. It'd be great if we can get more medals. I'm sure that over the years we will, but, you know, we're doing pretty well.
And saying that, Moss Burmester, do you think you could have done even better with the right structure around you?
Yeah, definitely. In the end of my career was sort of from Beijing onwards, it was a mess, and there was things in there that could have definitely have benefited me at the end and helped me out a lot. What in particular? I guess one of the things was coaching. I lost my coach 8 weeks prior to the Com Games, and that made a big impact on my Commonwealth Games. And just the administration blunders, just being overseas and not getting the support that I wanted, and you know, always having to I felt like I was letting the sport down because he had pressure from them to have to perform as well, and then you weren't getting listened to. Again, sometimes I know with you, sometimes there were bookings that were wrong, there were hotel bookings that were incorrect, flights were messed up. Again, that's at an administration level, isn't it, that you were let down? Yeah, they had to. I agree. It's sort of, they don't realise how professional they have to be. It has to go to the next level. And I think that's a thing that gets built into the culture. So the whole culture has to change in the sport of swimming, and it has to be basically centred around swimming and the swimmers, and then, you know, and then it has to be instilled into the whole organisation. Right. Do you think as part of our high performance fund we should be setting aside money, Phil Gifford, for international coaches? Do we need to look offshore more often than not for some high performance coaching for some of our codes?
It's very hard to know, because I get back to the thing, it's to me, it's totally down to the individuals. I mean, maybe we do, maybe we don't, but you just want the best coach. You want the coach that relates the most to the athletes, and I think Moss has phrased it perfectly. Everything you do, whether it's administrators or coaching, the only question should be, will it make the athlete go faster, be stronger, jump higher, swim quicker, you know? That's the only thing you have to worry about. So when you're looking, for example, at coaches, if you're a very good administrator, you would probably look first in New Zealand, because you'd feel that a New Zealander might relate more easily than a person with whom English was a second language. But if there's nobody in New Zealand that can relate, then of course you should go overseas. The whole aim should be just to get the best, regardless of where they come from.
All right, finally, just quickly, gentlemen, a success, the London Games, do you think, Dick Quax?
I think they've been a huge success. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think it's just been a fantastic Games, and you know, I've got to say that it's one of the best that I've seen.
Moss?
Yes, I agree. It's been successful.
Yeah, you think? Phil
Yeah,
Gifford?
fabulous Games, and I must just say to the rowers, if there was a blueprint for how to make a sport be happy, be united, and out of that be incredibly successful, like Dick says, 1,000,000 miles above where they should be on population, then rowing is the golden example from these Games.
You need to bottle it. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much, Dick Quax, Moss Burmester and Phil Gifford. Thank you for your time this morning.